Hi, Kelly Oxford.
Hello.
How are you?
It's been an emotional couple of weeks and I'm tired.
Yeah.
It's been crazy.
Well, I'm glad you made it in.
Yeah, thank you. Mercury's in retrograde. Everything's messed up, but I'm here.
You made it. I was looking at your Instagram and it said, leaving in the morning for Toronto, leaving room for Shreddies, Coffee Crisp, Eat More, Score, Smarties, Dill Pickle, and Ketchup Chips.
Yes.
I got you something here. Hold on.
You did?
Yeah. Well,
Oh my God.
I figured we don't have coffee.
You saved me a trip.
We don't have coffee in our green room, so I figured I'd get you here. Here's a Coffee Crisp.
Oh my God, you got me a coffee crisp.
Yeah, and I got you a.
Oh, this is going to be eaten so quickly
How's
today.
that? A bag
Oh,
of-
this is great.
And Dill Pickle Chips.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So there you go.
You've won my heart already.
Outside, well, that's all. I do that with every guest, by the way. They come in.
You give them dill pickle
I'm
chips
like, hey, thanks a lot for coming in.
Here's some Smarties.
Yeah, here's some Smarties. You'll be all right.
Do that for Margaret Atwood, absolutely.
Oh, was she? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll get some ketchup chips for Margaret
Yeah,
Atwood.
that sounds right.
Outside of the coffee crisp and the dill pickle chips, what do you like? What do you miss the most about Canada?
It's the sense of security, and I felt it this morning just watching Canadian news, as you know, opposed to American news. The sense of security that you have in Canada, you don't really realize, even if you just. I mean, I travel a lot, and I'd been to the States a lot before I moved down there.
Yeah.
And I think it took about 7 weeks of living in the States for me to realize just how secure, and actually I called it a laziness that I had living in Canada.
Like a mental laziness?
A mental there was so much of my brain that I wasn't using just to survive that once I'd been in the States for a couple of months, I realized you really are on your own. And this sense of, Canadians always say Americans are so arrogant. And really what the arrogance is a self-preservation that Americans have to grow up with that we don't have to worry about if we, it's weird because you don't realize the safety net that we have walking down the street. If you were hit by a car or if you were suddenly struck ill, people would look after you. You would go to the hospital. Everything would be fine. In the States, there's none of that. You don't feel that sense of security in anything that you do during the day. If you're hit by a car, people will drive. I've seen people drive around other people that have been hit by cars. So there's a real, the we're number one, I'm looking out for me really is necessary for the majority of Americans.
I thought about that last night when I was reading your book because I guess one of the most impactful chapters is where you describe being diagnosed with panic disorder and anxiety. And through it, you do so through a series of visits to the doctor.
Yeah.
And you say your mom's constantly bringing you to the doctor.
Always.
Yeah, once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And then you get the diagnosis by going to the doctor over and over and over and over again. And I wondered if your friends in Los Angeles read that and said, well, that must have cost you a fortune.
Right. No, but I think that's part of it is inherently it's just a stress that you feel rather than a thought process. There's just a constant stress being in the States because it is expensive. Even to, like having a baby is tens of thousands of dollars. It's bizarre.
I'll say this. All right. I suffer from panic disorder as well.
Right.
And I don't really talk about it.
Right.
And you did such an incredible job of talking about how kind of outside your mind you tend to feel and how everything could be wrong with you except for the thing that is wrong with you.
Yes.
Why was it important for you to write about it? For you to write about anxiety and panic in this book?
I think that I really just wrote the book for me. I know I heard after I wrote my first book, and there were lots of great reviews and personal reviews on Amazon, but the few that were negative, where people really didn't like me and didn't like my character, really upset me. And one of my friends told me that she heard David Sedaris once say that he doesn't care about who reads his books; he writes them for him.
Right.
And so when I went into writing my second book, I thought, well, that's the greatest way to really think about it. What do I want to write about that's going to help me? And I thought, normalizing what stresses me out is helpful. And it was very easy to mine for stories based on what had upset me in the last few years. And finding the humor in things is easy, in any topic. And, you can talk to any comedian. You can take the worst things in the world and make them funny. So I think it was a lot of catharsis just going through the things that had recently happened in my life and tying in things that happened in my earlier childhood into, the stresses that are happening now, just to work through things myself.
I think what I found so interesting about that is that a lot of people who experience anxiety or panic have a hard time opening up, and especially on social media. But you've actually said that, and you're, of course, a prolific tweeter, and you have this incredible, like 767,000 Twitter followers.
Yeah.
And you've said that the idea of putting yourself on social media actually helps your anxiety.
Yeah, it does. I think saying I'm messed up and having people go, yeah, I know. I know you're messed up. It's pretty obvious. Is feels a lot easier than thinking, oh, I messed up to myself and worrying that people are going to catch on. Because I think everybody is messed up to a degree, to a large degree, and I think that not discussing it causes the anxiety to build in a dramatic way.
In the last essay in the book, you talk about how Donald Trump's casual comments about grabbing a woman sexually led you to post this. Women, tweet me your first sexual assaults. They aren't just stats. I'll go first. And millions of women ended up responding using the hashtag that you created, not okay. I remember when that took over social media, and it even kind of bounced into Canadian media as well. I know it went worldwide, but I saw people say, Canadian musicians, women musicians, tell me about the first time a promoter or someone else in a band did something awful to you. What did you take from that experience about the conversations that we have on Twitter and on social media that sometimes don't happen elsewhere?
First of all, I thought it was, Twitter was such a great place for that to happen. That there's nowhere else that conversation could have been had, because, Twitter's the place where people have a voice. It doesn't really matter who you are. You have a voice. You can send anybody a message and they're going to likely read it. Normalizing the conversation around sexual assault, or any terrible thing is something that I'm really interested in. That's, why I write about anxiety as well. So being able to massively bring this conversation, worldwide was a really big deal for me. It was very hard to get, and I, in the book, I go through just some of the tweets that I was receiving from people who were assaulted. And, for the first day and a half, it was really hard to be getting all of these extremely difficult stories to read.
Because you didn't think anyone was going to respond.
No, I didn't think anyone was going to respond. And then, millions of people responded. And I was just paralyzed, in my bed for a few days. And then I had a dinner that was coming up, a work dinner with Alex McAtee, who works with Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg, and with James Franco. And the three of us went out for dinner, and I just needed to order a bottle of wine immediately because I hadn't left my house in a few days. Right. And they were very supportive. And I said, just look at my phone, just look at Twitter for a second. And I pulled it up, all of these responses and all these stories I was getting in, and they updated it, and it was still 50 to 75 a minute of these stories that I was getting from people, and then they needed wine immediately as well when they realized that had been going on for me for 3 days.
You also said sharing is maybe the thing that helps us see that the world isn't really against us after all.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
I really think that the world actually isn't against me. I really do believe that the world is with me, but there are moments when it definitely feels like everything is going sideways or everything's going backwards. And for me, that's happened in the last few weeks. I don't want to get emotional and cry, but my friend had a baby. Jimmy Kimmel's baby was born with a heart disease. And he's fine. He went through his first operation. I know Jimmy talked about it on the show last night. And my grandfather died. And I don't want to cry.
Okay,
but there's just a lot, and somebody almost broke my foot at the airport. I got food poisoning on my tour in New York.
It's been a rough few weeks.
It's just been a crazy few weeks for a lot of reasons. And so you do feel like the world is against you. But when you open up and you do share with other people and you realize that they're in the same boat as you, that's when it feels like maybe the world isn't against you after all.
You start to think that the idea that there was a time where no one had a voice.
Right.
And all of a sudden what social media is able to do and what computers are able to do. I sound like I'm 104 calling them computers, by the way. What the computer is able to do. But what social media is able to do is to let people know that they're not alone and that other people feel the same way that they do. and that they can contribute to the conversation around these things.
Yeah.
And I think when Jimmy shared that last night, if you haven't seen this yet, it's incredible.
Yeah, I saw you tweeted it. I tweeted it as
well. I mean, I watched it live last night.
Good.
I watched it live. Just happened to turn on the TV, and he told this story. This is your friend Jimmy Kimmel and your friend Molly, who had a child, and he turns it into this beautiful plea for healthcare in the United States that no one should have to choose between going broke and their child dying. And I think at one point that would have just been gone away. That would have came on television. That would have been it. But now people are able to share it, and people are able to.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
It really is great.
It's amazing how sharing can help us out with the hard weeks.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's totally true. I agree.
And dill
pickle chips help too.
Over the past few years, there was a couple of big headlines about big projects you were working on. I know there was a TV show based on your life produced by Jessica Alba, and Drew Barrymore signed on to direct your first screenplay. None of those projects took off. As a writer, how hard is it when you make something like that and it doesn't really work?
I think there's a sense of disappointment right away. I'm a really weird person, and I just realized this the other day that I don't really mark failure for myself. I don't, when things don't work out, I really don't mark it as a failure. And nothing really gets me down. I just keep going.
How do you do that?
I have no idea. And I didn't even realize I did it until the other day when I was watching, I don't even know what I was watching, a show about failure. And I was just like, oh, I really don't do that to myself. I don't see it as a failure. I'm always thinking about the next project that I'm working on. And I guess because I do have other projects that I'm working on, maybe that really helps not feel like it's failure because my career isn't over.
But there's a project coming up with James Franco and Seth Rogen. Is that right?
Yeah, for Hulu, it's in development right now. It's a 90s high school show.
Do you think this one got a chance?
I mean, it should with those guys, but you never know.
You know what? Just call up the CBC.
That's right.
We'll take it.
That's true.
You know what? I can speak for the CBC, right?
Yeah.
I have that kind of power.
You're the president.
You know what? Done.
Great. Perfect. I'll be here on next Monday with those guys.
Kelly, this is a really, really tremendous book, and I found it really powerful. I should also say it's a really funny book. I'm sorry. I got kind of down.
I know.
It's a really, really funny book.
Yeah,
I just felt
funny.
so much reading the chapters, a couple of chapters especially. I felt so much reading it, and I think you will too. Your life has changed a lot since you moved from Calgary. You're hanging out with celebrities in LA. I know you said that you haven't had to pay for clothes in years because you get them for free, and McDonald's sends you pins.
McDonald's they sent me birthday presents this year.
That's pretty good.
It's really good.
Did they bring a ball pit to your house?
I wouldn't have gone in it. I'm a germaphobe.
But I think what made you so successful on Twitter was your relatability. That there were especially new parents. And a lot of people who felt like they were everyday people reading your observations on everyday life. Do you ever worry that being in Los Angeles will lose that relatability?
God, no, because I still have 3 kids and I still do all the normal things. And I still have, electrical sockets that are suddenly not working, and the internet that suddenly, I'm still. It doesn't matter that I'm in LA, and it's all of my friends who are quote unquote famous are just normal people that just have jobs that are under a spotlight, but are truly normal people when when you get to know them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Normal. Yeah, they're all just normal people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, cool. Well, Kelly Oxford, it's been a real pleasure having you here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
The book
even though I cried.
Well, that's all right. I cried too. When you find out the world is against you, and listen, when you're talking to your friends, pass on your best from us, will you?
Yeah, I will. For sure.
And my condolences to you as well.
Yeah, thank you.
When you find out the world is against you, and other funny memoirs about memories about awful moments, not other funny memoirs. That's a whole other thing.
That'll be when all the books come out.
Yeah, right. It's a really tremendous book, and Kelly Oxford joined me live in the Q studio.